It's time for your weekly installment of the Reserve List Top 10. These are the hottest selling Magic cards for the Reserve List from April 6th to the 13th of 2024. And in some cases, there are tens of thousands of dollars moving through certain Reserve List cards. We're going to cover a little MTG finance near the end of the video. So stick around, guys. We have a lot to talk about today. Hi everybody and welcome back. MTG Moxman here, and thanks again for hanging out with me for another top 10 video. Now before we start the video, a reminder, if you enjoy the content, if you want to see more Moxman, all you gotta do is hit that subscribe button, turn on your notification bell, new videos every day, and of course you can also use my TCG Player affiliate link found in the description of this video. It's a great way to support the channel. But let's get right away into the number 10 card this week. It is Liege of Hollows, again coming from Weatherlight with 44 sales this week, which is only $248.60 in sales volume. With an average price of $5.65 US, this is not a really expensive card, and there is continued action as we get closer to the Modern Horizons 3 rollout that a lot of players are going to start picking these cards up because squirrels are a big thing. Players like them, they want to utilize them, and a card like Liege of Hollows really makes that happen. Remember, this card goes, it says, if Liege of Hollows is put into a graveyard from play, each player may pay any amount of mana, and that number of squirrel tokens gets put into play under their control. They count as 1/1 green creatures, but here's the thing. You can wait till your opponent is tapped out. You can wait till things are in your favor. You can do crazy things. That's why it's the Liege of Hollows. It's never really a hollow idea to get squirrels. Now, our number 9 card this week is Gaea's Cradle from Urza's Saga. Now, this thing is a heavy hitter, guys. 47 sales this week, or a total sales volume of $39,000 US. This thing is massive. It gets a lot of gameplay. A lot of players like to have a copy of this card around. And of course, the price tag has been trending downward, but we've still seen a bit of an uptick here and there. Right now, I'd say it's still kind of a pricey card, but I can see why players want to buy it. A lot of trading value to go for a card like this. Now, it does tap for 1 green mana to your mana pool for each creature you control, which can be insane in these new token decks, which means you can utilize crazy mana supplies, especially when you add in maybe a Candelabra of Tawnos to untap this thing and do like a double take. I love these cards. I love the Reserve List. I know, guys, we can't help ourselves. The Reserve List is amazing. But you know what? That's enough of Gaea's Cradle. This thing's insane. Powerful card. Let's go ahead now and take a look at our number 8 card this week. And it's another powerful card coming to us from Stronghold. This is Mox Diamond. This thing has been on and off with the Reserve List top 10 for the last several weeks. 48 sales this week, which is $31,199 in sales volume. This thing's got sales across the board from Facebook groups, local, eBay, Card Kingdom, TCG Player, Card Market, you name it. There are sales everywhere being tracked for this card, and there are still a lot of wait lists for people who have it on a wish list, but it has to be a heavily played copy. It's everywhere. Damaged or heavily played copies so players can actually afford them, because most of the players who want these cards are the players who want to actually play with them, not invest in them. So this has led a bit of a gap in where we're finding our pricing and how players are able to afford or not afford this card. But it's still highly desired and sought after. So if you got a copy already, congratulations. You made the right move on this case. In this case, I said on this case, but in this case. Now let's go ahead and take a look at the number 7 card, and this should not be a big surprise. Here is Visions, and it's Tithe. Now, this card, $23.65 is the average. 49 sales this week, which is $1,158.85. Now, this card is a 1 casting cost instant. Search your library for a Plains card. If you control fewer lands than target opponent, you may search your library for an additional Plains card, reveal those cards to all players, and put them into your hand, then shuffle your library. Now, with the Claim Jumper card being around, this gives you now multiple ways of going in and doing crazy things to get Plains cards out. I can see why players decide to kind of pony up and get a few extra copies for deck construction, deck building, but when enough players have the same idea at the same time, it kind of leads to this weird surge of sales like we just saw with Tithe. Now, I did mention this card was super cheap about 6 months ago when it was around the $16, $17 mark. It's gone up since then, of course, but this is for near mint copies, guys. You can find heavily played, moderately played copies and save yourself 30 to 40% in some cases. So just look around on TCG Player. You might get lucky and find just the right copy for yourself. Now we're going to take a look here. Okay, This is Psychic Vortex. Sorry, I almost lost my wording, my train of thought there for the Moxman. Now, the Psychic Vortex was number 1 last week. This week it still comes in with 50 sales from the 6th to the 13th. It's only $241 in sales volume. Cumulative upkeep of draw a card, which is insane, right? Draw a card. At the end of your turn, you gotta sacrifice a land and discard your hand. So you better be able to cast and utilize everything inside your deck. But there are people who like to use this. There are people who like to be weird and try crazy, janky things, and the artwork is totally awesome. So this card still being less than $5 a copy, I can see why players are still ponying up a few bucks just to say they own a copy of this from Weatherlight. It makes sense in case later on Wizards breaks something or does something crazy. You don't want this thing shooting up to $40, $50 and you didn't buy a copy when it was cheap. So go ahead, buy a copy. Now we're going to go over to Fallen Empires. That's right, I said it. Fallen Empires. Rainbow Veil had a surge of sales this week that cannot be denied. So we got to talk about it. 52 sales this week. $289.64 in sales volume. That's nothing. Now this Fallen Empires had a print run around 250 to 400 million, depending on who you believe and where you want to take it from. It has a massive print run. There's still lots of sealed boxes out there. But the Rainbow Veil, finding a near mint copy for $5, finding a beat up copy for $2, depending on why you want the copy and what you're trying to do with it, this card's amazing. The artwork is fantastic. Add 1 mana of any color to your mana pool, and then you got to give it to your opponent at the end of the turn. Of course, we used to sacrifice this and recast it. We had lots of ways of not giving you the Rainbow Veil card. Some players don't care about that. They want the right mana at the right time for their commander deck. And I mean specifically this thing gets some commander play. So keep an eye out, guys. An amazing card, and the price is still really cheap. Now we're going to something that's not cheap, something that people need to know about. These sales have been mounting for a lot of the dual lands. It usually is kind of like this after effect health of the market of where we find all kinds of like reserve list cards. And dual lands like Underground Sea here with 54 sales, which is $44,903. And there's graded copies selling, near mint copies, heavily played copies, damaged copies. Everything under the sun is moving for this market right now, which means a lot of players are taking a lot of interest in reserve list cards. It doesn't mean they're going to pay top dollar, but there are players looking for deals and bargains, and they're buying them. Now, in the case of Underground Sea, they're buying everything under the sun, and they don't really care. They just seem to be wanting to buy the card, and they want to get it at a fairly decent price. So I can appreciate that, and so can all of you. So if you're looking for this card, you probably lost your window of when this thing was down to like the 500 and change range. It just keeps climbing now, so it's best to sit in the back burner unless you have lots of trade in. Now our number 3 card is Plateau from Revised. Another massive sales week for more dual lands. This thing had 56 sales this week, or $18,780 in sales volume. It averages $335.37 for near mint copies, but that's not what's been selling. Players who've been utilizing and trying to get their hands on these cards for their commander decks or for other formats they're playing in, including Kitchen Table Magic, don't forget guys, they've been buying the cheapest copies they can find. So if they can find damaged copies for around the $150 mark US, they are buying them. It's what's happening, okay? Now when you get players buying heavily played, they're adding 20 or 30% on top of that, you can see how multiple copies can sell, not for the top dollar, but they're player copies. They're ones that players are going to be able to enjoy and just get their hands on. That's what they care about. Now, for the number 2 card this week, we got to talk about this because it's Soldevi Excavations. That's right, guys. The card of the channel from Alliances did make it to number 2 yet again. 63 sales this week, or $878.22. There's not a lot of cheap copies left of this card, so the sales are definitely going to trend down. The days of the $7, $8 copies seem to have mostly been picked up from TCG Player, as well as things like eBay. So there's not a lot of cheap copies around. Players will have to spend real money, bigger bucks, to get their hands on them. So if you're a member of the Army of Soldevi, you're part of the channel here. Thanks again, man. This card's amazing. I love it. You guys know it's true, and I can't wait to see one day when there's just no copies left for people, and they go, what is that card? I've never seen it before. And you'll say, yeah, I remember the days of when everyone was shopping for a Soldevi and they'd pay like $5 to get it. Crazy, guys. But this is not the number 1 card. We now have to jump over and talk about what's still going on into the number 1 position, because this card has now been here a few weeks in a row. No, it's not Fast Bond. Nope, not there, but we got the Tombstone Stairwell from Mirage, continues to hold the spot. This is the 3rd week in a row. 67 sales this week, $1,335.31 of sales action. $19.93 is actually off about 8 cents from last week's price, but that doesn't mean that players aren't still buying it. They're just not buying it in the volume they did. After you have 1 or 2 copies, how much more do you need? Somebody who buys 10 copies for speculation, they're not going to keep buying because it's not going to go up. They have nobody to sell to, so they're just going to sit on it and enjoy the fact that they got multiple copies when it was kind of cheap. Can this card go to $50? Absolutely it can. Can it go to 100? Maybe. It just depends on how much gameplay it sees and how many players decide that this is the right card at the right time to fit into their commander deck, into a vintage legacy deck, wherever they're playing in kitchen table. It all makes sense. Now let's get to the wrap up. Let's talk about what's happening in MTG market space for reserve list cards, because it's kind of a wild west out there. And no, I don't mean Thunder Junction. So here at the end of the video, I just want to cover a few extra things for those people who really dig the MTG finance, and that is, there's not a lot out there. The sheer volume of cards we used to see exchanging hands in the reserve list is just not there. Although there is some desirability and a lot of players are looking for very specific cards for whatever they're building or for whatever reason, they can't find it. They can't find the condition, they can't find the price. Now when you can't find a price and you can't find the condition, then the supply and demand are not meeting up where it needs to, which means one or the other has to give. In the world of supply and demand, there's only so much give and take that will happen before one side gives in. Either somebody needs money bad enough and they're going to sell copies, or a person wants that copy bad enough that they're tired of waiting, hoping for a deal, and they're just going to spend the extra money. Now, cards like Grim Monolith that don't have a ton of copies out there to buy, Braingeyser, Fork, they're all lower supply. Even things like Copy Artifact, which didn't make the list, but still sold, 20, 25 sales this week. It still had a fairly consistent amount of sales volume. And when we see the dip in sales of everything that's standard related, Commander, like general sales for Magic, as compared to reserve list sales, reserve list is staying really consistent, where the other sales are kind of dropping off big time as we get closer to Modern Horizons 3. So if you're a player who loves reserve list cards, if you're a player who just enjoys collecting, you're definitely in the right space right now, but the prices are trending up and down depending on where you are. Some of these cards that go into short supply, the price is trending up. You're going to kind of want to avoid it, put it on the back burner, hold on to it. The cards that are going down in price, if it's a card you're after, wait a little while longer. There's a glut on the market of some of these reserve list cards that just don't seem to hold value because they're not desirable enough, and you might be able to save a few bucks and get these cards cheap. Thanks again, everyone, for hanging out with me on the channel today. Thanks for stopping by the channel for the top 10. I look forward to seeing you guys on the live stream, 6:30 Eastern Standard Time. And don't forget, everyone, bring a friend to Magic. I'll see you guys tomorrow. Big shout out and thank you to the fantastic patrons we have here on the channel. Now, because of all these amazing patrons, no matter what level they're at, these patrons help the content creation of this channel. Because of their support, daily uploaded videos get made possible. So thanks again to each and every one of my patrons, my YouTube membership members, who make it here every single day. Thanks for that support, and I will see you guys tomorrow with another video. Ramble Jamble?